I don't know you, but I have no choice but to love you and trust you. It's a whole nother season of humility. And then you start to battle the emotions of, this is the most joy-filled day of my life, but this is the hardest day for her.
Come back. All right, I think we're good. Huh?
Oh! So the phone rings, and Jude was born. 4 pounds, 10 ounces, and 16 and a half inches long. About 32 weeks or so it was about 8 weeks early. A little bit of like NICU stay and all that kind of stuff. This flood of emotions just kind of came through as this daily reminder of just open up your hearts, love is on the way. And there was so much uncertainty, and there always is with an adoption process. But a child with complex medical needs, in a way, just because he was premature, not for any other like reasons, but first-time parents, everything was complex to us.
Yeah, we didn't
everything.
Know, we didn't know what it meant for us to have a NICU stay. We didn't know what this was going to look like. You know, was he going to have complications? Is this something that you know, we're going to have to change our life around or anything?
And we were willing to do it.
We didn't know what to expect, but we knew that this was our son. And
I don't remember a whole lot of detail other than like just dying a little on the inside with hope and anticipation, but also just like this weight like on my chest about this difficult decision that this woman's making that I don't even know who she is. Like there was so much anticipation, but also grief that kind of comes with that. And it's this simultaneous emotion of joy and sorrow, because this is her biological right to choose if she would have chosen, you know, to parent in that way. So
I was all like, the emotion just set in, and that this was actually happening. Like we were about to meet our son for the first time.
Meet my son. It's crazy.
It is.
Craziest stories of just how the Lord really moved and all of that. And we ended up finding out about our sweet Keller Wynn, who's our little girl. We ended up finding out kind of through a friends of friends and situations that we had adopted before, that we had a heart for adoption. And her birth mom just kind of was in a situation where she needed someone. And we were like, well, sure, you know, again, we don't get really attached to these situations anymore. You know, we're going to just let the Lord do what he will, and we're going to celebrate regardless. And so we didn't hear from her birth mom for a couple of weeks, and she was nearing the end of her pregnancy. And long story short, we get a phone call on a Wednesday night that we had been chosen to be her forever family.
We went and got the car seat, but we didn't expect anything immediate or anything. So
because at this point, I mean, anything could have still happened. She could still change her mind. That's her biological right, and we were just kind of doing what we needed to do to be prepared, but also kind of reserved in a way that was self-preservation too, I think.
Yeah, went to bed that night, and we woke up the next morning to both of our phones being blown up with text messages and phone calls. 4 a.m. She was born 4 a.m. in the morning, and
so about 9 hours after we figured out that we were going to be her forever family, she was born 9 hours later. So while we're sitting there and we're kind of in the again, it's not over until there's this huge monumental heart shift with adoption, that when she signs those papers, everybody understands that there's a shift in parentage. The hospital recognizes it, the court system is going to recognize it, we recognize it, you know, the birth mom will recognize it. She goes from being expectant mom to mama to birth mom at that point, and I go to mama. We have hospital arm bracelets that are exchanged, daddy gets one. Like there's this whole thing. It's this big, it's not normal, but it's not meant to be. And I love the abnormalcy that just comes with being able to love on someone in a vulnerable situation, not non-contingent upon them giving you their biological child, but because they matter. So I remember sitting there, and we just were speaking life with her and pouring life into her, and you know, regardless of kind of history stuff, which is kind of what started this, she said, I just really trust you guys. And knowing in life that there's always reasons, regardless of who you are, for people to have lost your trust, we just kind of looked at each other like, holy cow. When someone looks at you from a very vulnerable state, and they just look at you in your eyes, and I don't know you, but I have no choice but to love you and trust you. It's a whole nother season of humility. And then you start to battle the emotions of, this is the most joy-filled day of my life, but this is the hardest day for her. And reliving and resurfacing all of those emotions and how they're okay to simultaneously exist. Those emotions can coexist, and regardless, we were all in on Keller Wynn. And at that point, that was something that we could all agree upon, is no matter the sorrow or the joy that we were feeling, everyone was focused on her well-being at that point. Her birth mom was going through the process of signing paperwork, and it's really daunting and hard, and we opted to not be there for that. We had already opted for that, and then they said that we wouldn't have been allowed to anyways, and that was great. We wanted that respect.
We're literally sitting in the parking lot of the
for like 3
hospital
hours.
for like 3 hours, just waiting to hear from our attorney, and they've got her attorney in there to make sure that everything's legally sound.
She had her own representation. That was an additional something that she had her own people to ask questions to, not just. Granted, yes, we're paying for it, but it's her own legal representation that she gets to ask hard questions. She gets to say, hey, can you clarify this? It's not the attorney that's also simultaneously serving us in this capacity.
So we're sitting there in the parking lot, and Jessica gets a phone call from Keller Wynn's birth mom, and it's like, hey, this is what's going on. They're wanting me to sign this paperwork saying that Keller Wynn is legally turned over to the adoption agency, the attorney,
until finalization,
and I'm not okay with that.
I don't like that.
I want y'all to parent.
Very smart.
She was like, I'm not doing this. If y'all are okay with it, I'm gonna change this and make it to where it says y'all's name, and we're not I'm not taking any risk, because if something happens, she was,
where is she going to end
up?
Exactly.
She was so worried and so
and rightfully so.
Absolutely emotional, and just I don't know, it was just very beautiful to that kind of emotion behind it and thought process, that she was so worried and wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything crazy going to happen, that she was signing something that said that she was giving parentage to us and nobody else.
It's funny because she scratched through some of the wordage. She put her initials above it. She wrote out, carroted what she wrote, that this baby was just specifically to go to us, and that if something were to have happened to us prior to finalization, that, it was going to be, it was the coolest thing, because there was just this matter of fact, this is the way that I want things, this is my expectation, but it put us in the forefront of she trusts us infinitely with something so precious to her.
It gave us so much comfort as we're sitting in this car outside of the hospital just waiting, and we get a phone call like that, and just the emotion and the comfort that you get from hearing that, and that she trusts you.
Because at that point, had she not signed, I would have gotten up, walked back in that hospital, and hugged her anyway. That was just the emotion. This was so fast, this was so quick, that nothing surprises us anymore. Especially in a whirlwind like that, okay, what else is gonna happen? Is there a twin? Is there stuff nothing would have surprised us at this point. But for her to have chosen even to parent at that point would have been okay. It would have been hard, and we would have moved through, but that would have been all right. Yeah. But it was so humbling to have that be a level of trust that she gave to us. It's not lost on us, her choice and her decisions, and how much they've blessed our family will never be lost on us. So Keller Wynn was probably about 6 months older or so, and we had done a couple of renovations, but the Lord just kind of started to impress upon my heart. We had a couple of post-placement visits with the home city process that were necessary, and when our social worker came over, she's like, you guys would be so good at this, with all your experiences and your stories, between both babies and all this stuff.
And we actually had one of my aunts is a nurse.
Yes.
And she called us 2 times.
She called us the day of Jude's finalization when he was 9 months old, and said, there's this other baby, and what do I do? And we were like, well, I don't know.
She was kind of calling us to fill us out.
To see if we were interested in doing this.
To adopt again and everything. We're like, no, we just finalized Jude's adoption. We can't do this right now.
Sure enough, we ended up calling our social worker, and we were like, hey, what do we do? She's like, I know of a family who's incredible, who's literally en route back home from another state right now, and to Georgia, and they just had a failed adoption, and we just immediately retreated back into this place that we were in, a year or so prior.
We could feel the emotions
oh
and the
my
heartbreak
gosh,
and the
we
hurt.
know exactly what they're feeling like right now. And so to get the opportunity for her to call them and say, what are your thoughts? They they were coming from a different state to Georgia, and then detoured back where they were just coming from, and went right back, and just the wildest story, but they're a family now. That just kind of settled in my heart for a really long time. For probably about a good year to a year and a half, Keller Wynn was born, and 6 months later, again, my hands were kind of idle, and I thought, I just feel the Lord just kind of saying, now's the time, and I really want you to step into this portion of your journey and what my testimony is going to look like. And so I decided that I was going to bring it to David and say, hey, I really think we need to start an adoption consultant company and help other people do this. And I remember sitting there talking to him, and he's looking at me like, I'm going to let her finish, but this is not happening. And it wasn't from a place of discouragement. It was a place of, she's not being real with herself. She's maxed out. There's no way we can even do this. We've got a 6-month-old, we've got a 2 now, a 2.5-year-old. Like, he traveled for work a lot. When are we gonna do this?
The financial aspect of it, my immediate thoughts is like starting a business and opening a business. There's so many financial aspects and legal aspects of it that. Like,
and
we have no clue what we're doing. Like, we don't know how to do this. And what do you mean we're gonna open a business? And there's no way we can.
We've never
do this.
started a business, and I was like, and it's nuts because it's not something that we really felt initially qualified to do, but through our prayer and just petition with it, we thought, okay, we do truly feel like where we aren't qualified yet, that the Lord would continue to prune and qualify in that way. We had to trust that. But we knew that he doesn't just call the qualified, right? Like to adopt, he doesn't call the people who can on paper afford this the easiest, the doctors and the Lord. No, he calls people who are believers, and even his disciples were made up of 12 pretty ordinary people. You know, this was a process that we didn't feel qualified to start, but we knew he would qualify the called. And so we thought, okay, well, we feel called to this, so he's going to qualify us. Well, we just have to trust that. So we applied for the business license and got everything going.
License, we sat down with an attorney and got a whole business plan wrote up, ownership, all the deeds and everything. We sat down with the accountant and got all of our chart of accounts set up. And
it's funny because we sat down with our tax preparer, our accountant, and she was like, just making small talk as she's entering stuff in the computer. What's y'all's dreams, for your first company? And David was like, I don't know, and kind of looked at me, and I said, I think like 6 families, 6 babies, 6 healthy adoption situations. We don't know what disrupted adoptions or, actually go through. I said, but we would love to serve 6 families. And David looked at me like, you have lost your mind.
There's
maybe
no
1,
way.
maybe 2.
Yeah.
Like, we're just starting this. We're already 2 months into the year. No way. And sure enough, I like sparked back something sassy and was like, okay, well, watch this. And sure enough, I really just felt like the Lord was going to take this and run with it. All he needed was our yes. And turns out we placed 37 babies in the first 10 months in that first year. But the first calendar year was only 10 months really essentially of us owning the business and functioning with it. And so in those 10 months, we placed 37 babies and 37 forever homes. And, starting Mustard Seed the name of the company is Mustard Seed Adoption Consultants. And just starting this was just based off of our own initial going on those dates, talking about things, going and buying a car seat for a child we didn't yet know, and if they would even come home inside that car seat or what that process would look like. But all we knew was these little teeny faith buys, and they were these little teeny faith things, and we would say little teeny faith buys and little teeny faith dinners and little teeny faith conversations and little teeny faith names, and we would just talk about these little things, and we loved it, but there was still this like added layer of the unknown that was always behind that. But it was like all the Lord needed was this little mustard seed size of faith, and being able to toss that mountain from here into the depths of the ocean for us and for our family was something that we tangibly saw the Lord's faithfulness in. Our family was literally mirroring what the Lord wanted for us. All he needed was for us to lay our yes on that table. But just being able to watch families grow in this season has been so beautiful and humbling to have the opportunity to be a part of. And it's so precious to me.
this is our sweet friend Leah. Leah is our gestational carrier for our surrogacy journey. I'm really excited about it. Leah and I have known each other since the 3rd grade in Sunday school class. I met her and her twin sister, and I think I got you guys confused for the first couple of years of life.
I'm sure.
Of me knowing you. It was a couple years before I realized differences because you guys look so similar. But ultimately just kind of grew up together and always kind of kept, details of our lives and stuff kind of kept together on social media and living further apart from each other. It was just kind of one of those relationships we just always treasured.
Easy to pick up, but easy to follow on social media, which I continued to follow. You and David got married, and then you started your journey of having children.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed getting to follow that, encouraging you through the long haul.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It was a long haul.
Yeah. I mean, quite the process, and just praying for you guys that things would work out the way they needed to. And then growing your family by 2 kids in adoption.
Yes, that's right.
It's been neat to follow that journey. Yeah.
I guess December 9th we posted after waiting and 7 years waiting and going alternate routes growing our family. On December 9th we decided, we prayed and talked about it and decided that we wanted to post on social media that we were starting the surrogacy and IVF process again, and that we were looking for a surrogate, and ultimately that led to Leah.
Led to me. I saw that post, and immediately what came to my mind was a picture of me and my twin pregnant together. That Jessica was like, will you just be my surrogate? Well, one of you, will you just help us out?
They were so preciously pregnant. It was cute.
Where our bumps were together, and I don't know, it was funny. But it was like, we could really, one of us could do that someday.
It kind of started out as a joke and didn't end as a joke.
I had used the word surrogacy before just because of pregnancies being pretty even kill, not hard, not easy, but normal, you know, what felt like normal to me.
Yeah.
And so I reached out and said, I think we'd be interested. Obviously, I spoke with my husband. We did. We had a good talk with Jessica and David about what it might look like, because we never knew what surrogacy entailed. It went well. And we're still here.
Yeah.
Through that, we had to get all our paperwork sent in. All 4 of us had meetings together, evals, and making sure we were ready for this, and led to everything looking good.
Lots of 10 months worth of time kind of passing and going on and doing medical treatments here and finding out here and doing this kind of testing here and psychological evaluations here and different kinds of obstetric background and gynecological background history here, and that process takes long. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, if you will, about that, and so sometimes it just takes some time. We went through the process. That was from December until our very first transfer in October. We went through to October 1st and decided last minute that we were going to take our last 2 remaining embryos and we were going to divide them into 2 different transfers just in case the first one didn't work out. And so we did. We only transferred the 1 embryo as of October 1st. And ultimately that resulted in a miscarriage. That was something that was really difficult. We know that that's a reality, that's a part of this process. The emotions were still there. It was still really raw, even though we had kind of shut that door for about 7 years, and decided that given the nature of the way her body miscarried, we wanted to do this one more time. And we still trusted Leah's body. We trusted the fact that this was going to be something that we felt comfortable together as a couple. The medical team felt comfortable. Leah and Phil were still on the same page. Leah's body was chemically ready to go, and we decided we were going to do one more try.
Just trusting God's plan and God's timeline for everything. Just having that peace there after, the struggle and the initial pain that came along with that first transfer and miscarriage. So we just decided that we were ready to try again. So, kind of did like a little reboot of everything. And November 19th, yesterday, we had our second transfer and had some surreal moments during that transfer. I was not there, but I was actually out of town, and Jessica showed me some videos when I got back that when they brought baby in in petri dish and the embryo, they put them under the microscope, and just watching the embryo, checking date of birth, name and everything to make sure it's our embryo and things like that. But then looking at the embryo to draw it up for implantation, just watching the embryo start moving and everything, and it literally was just moving around and changing shape and everything. It's just a amazing feeling, hope-filled feeling.
Yeah.
So.
And having the embryologist be like, that little black dot right there, that is literally housing this baby's DNA right now. Like, that will become the actual, like, it was the most surreal process. Yeah. Now we wait.
Yes.
And now we wait the long-awaited 2-week wait. I think lots of fertility journeys start talking about it as the 2WW, and it's the 2-week wait. And it's kind of, the transfer yesterday was borderline the easy process, and now this is the hard wait.
The wait is the hard process.
The wait is the hardest part. Yes. So now we start that. So now we await the 2-week wait. And that's where we're at right now. And that HCG blood work is on the other kind of on the other side of that. It's the part of this process that the transfer is the easy part. This is the part that's kind of lingering over all of our heads. I think we have opted this time not to do any at-home pregnancy tests.
I think so.
That's important to note, is that we have decided that ultimately, while it wasn't positive before, maybe that's may or may not be why it didn't yield much peace and contentment at that point. Had it been positive, I don't know, we would have opted to continue to do it the same way we did last time, but for the nature of this, we'll wait. We're going to wait until our 2-week blood test. And so at that blood test, Leah will go in. It'll be a simple blood test procedure. They'll go in and draw blood and then call us in the next couple of hours. And they actually are really neat about it. They actually call us and let us know whether or not she's pregnant, and then we get the chance to tell her, which is so cool. I mean, it's our baby, and so we get the opportunity to kind of know that first. So the blood work, the HCG levels, it's just monitoring that blood hormone that is going to, whether she's pregnant or she's not. So they want that number to be in a certain range, and when that number is above that, then we know she's pregnant. And if the number is 0 and it's not, there's nothing HCG wise being represented in her blood, then we know that the pregnancy ultimately didn't make it.
If the numbers are right that first day, then they'll have Leah come back over the next day or 2 and just continue to take tests to make sure that those numbers are steadily increasing, just to ensure a positive pregnancy. They just want to see the numbers on a steady rise. Kind of
a sliding scale in the upward direction, and just to make sure that things are still moving along. So now we wait the 2 weeks, we get the blood work, and we'll know something after that. But for now, we wait.
It's waiting and trusting God and putting faith in His plan once again.
Yep.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm nervous.
I know you are.